think this should be working.
Yep,
Sorry
we
about
can
the
hear you.
delay, everyone. I've been having a few monkey wrenches thrown my way by my audio microphone. So, well, let me just go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction of myself here. First of all, I just want to thank Mike Beestrigger for inviting me to just give some insights here as regards TikTok. And I wanted to outline and talk a little bit about sort of the compilation space. And I have tailored the notes that I want to share with you all a little bit to Minecraft creators in particular. Maybe from a broader perspective, I do want to share some principles that can help with gamers in particular. And so I do want to mention as well, before I get into a little bit of a preface here, that I'm going to link afterwards. I'll have to give this to Mike to send out to you all, but I'm going to link essentially a Google spreadsheet or a Google document with some different resources, some different accounts that I would love for you all to check out on TikTok that are going to illustrate some of the examples that I want to touch upon today, and a few things in that avenue. So don't worry about getting out the pen and paper and scrawling constantly. I do want to give you the outline. So that being said, now that I've got that out of the way, I want to give you a little bit of background on myself, some things that I'm kind of up to right now, and then we'll jump right into talking about really three different avenues when it comes to gaming accounts and building out a compilation account on TikTok. So really the three different sections I've sort of divided my thoughts into, if you will. I want to talk a little bit about mastering retention in individual videos, ultimately creating trajectory, building that watch time, and I want to give you some micro tactics that I think are very, very undervalued and underutilized, especially on TikTok. So hopefully you'll get some value from that. And then secondly, I want to touch upon monetization. So there are a few up and coming avenues and veins of generating profit on TikTok that I do want to touch upon that I really do think are vastly undervalued on the platform. And I also want to share with you as well, you may not have heard this elsewhere, but I want to share with you a few different new additions that I know TikTok is going to be adding later on in this year that I think will present a lot of open doors, particularly to gamers on TikTok. So hopefully this will be your first time hearing some new value there. And then at the very end, I wanted to touch upon sort of a broader bird's eye perspective when it comes to building out a gaming account on TikTok and talk a little bit about sort of the meaningful impact. Sure, you've got a massive fan base on TikTok, but how do you take that to the next level? And what are some of the next steps that you can implement in terms of building out your quote unquote TikTok empire? So the three sections are mastering retention, monetization, and then we'll end talking a little bit about meaningful impact. So maybe you can remember these as the 3 M's. But that being said, I'll give a little bit of background on myself. So I predominantly run a YouTube channel talking about TikTok, and I'm personally incredibly fascinated by the interworkings of the platform. I really don't believe there's any better opportunity out there in the social media marketplace for discoverability and really building a massive fan base from scratch. You have people starting with complete blank slates, whether it's a personality channel or it's a gaming account, and you can explode overnight, for lack of a better way of describing it. So really sort of where I kind of got my genesis and origin story on TikTok is I jumped on the platform in 2019, and I started initially with a personality-based account, uploaded a few videos just on the recommendation from a friend, and had a few of those scale to a few million views within a few hours, and then ended up growing that account to about 100,000 followers in less than a week. And I did a documentary video on that on YouTube in particular. And then after that, I sort of dabbled a little bit in the compilation space on TikTok. I started an account that was known as Sand City. I've since sold it, but it was based on the ASMR sand cutting space. I would buy loads and loads of the clay sand off of Amazon. I had a few sponsors as well. And then I would have someone create those videos, upload it to the account. And I did that off and on, that cycle of building accounts around spaces and topics that I saw having a lot of budding potential on TikTok. And I ended up sort of tapping out of that space because it got a little bit of, it became very taxing. And when it came to transitioning those accounts, when I ended up selling them, that was always an uphill battle. So I do have a few gaming accounts that I do run currently that I'm not super active on. One of them is Among Us Meme City is one that has really not been active for a while. There's also another sports account, Cristiano7 Editor, which has around 1.2 million followers. That is sort of one of those inactive account ventures. But I want to share with you, and let me go ahead and sort of dive right into, I think, for the first topic here of mastering retention. Because really, from my experience of building these accounts, and especially with working with other creators as well, and diving a little bit deeper into the science of virality, which is sort of how I would describe my entire intention behind uploading to YouTube, and even offering to have conversations with creators, is I'm fascinated. Is there a way with TikTok that you can predictively have virality, have a viral video, so to speak, with every single video? And there are some creators that have done it, and I'm extremely interested and intrigued in reverse engineering those that have really scaled to some of these top tier levels on TikTok. And I want to give you some examples of those that are also in the Minecraft gaming space as well, that I think have a really solid foothold in understanding on what plays into a mega viral video that you could potentially scale to 50 million views or so. And I'm going to throw out a little bit of a challenge right now for anyone listening in. I challenge anyone to find and I found this a couple months ago doing some research, but if you can find the most viewed Minecraft video on TikTok, let me know, and I've got something special for you if you message me on Instagram with that link. I'll tell you the view count. It has around 111 million views. And as far as I'm aware, that's the most viewed video. I could be wrong. If you find something greater, let me know, and I'll correct my ignorance here. But let me know if you find that. I'm not going to tell you which account it's from. You'll have to do some scavenging and due diligence with research. But that being said, let me go ahead and dive into a little bit on the topic of mastering retention. And retention, fundamentally on TikTok, is just a fancy way of saying, how can you capture your viewers' attention, hopefully through the full duration of the video? Because ultimately, across all the different accounts that are listening in and all the different personalities and channels on TikTok, there's a massive spectrum and diversity of ideas and topics, and that's amazing. I think TikTok really has sort of leveled the playing field for the potential for random ideas to see the light of day. And I think that's where TikTok is such a vital tool in the social media market, is it presents this medium for sharing your idea at scale, often overnight, for better, for worse, with the entire user base on the platform. But regardless of what the video is, the topic and your focus, the main goal of your video structure or your idea, remains the same across them all, and that is to capture your viewers' retention. And so really the best way that you can do this, and this is sort of the first point that I want to address under mastering retention, is to create trajectory in your video. And trajectory really is just a fancy way of saying, what can you say, what can you do in the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video such that your viewer has something to look forward to at the very end, right? There's direction in your video. If I'm simply hacking down a tree or endlessly searching for a particular element of the earth, whether I'm playing one game or another, that's great. Certainly, I think there's a lot of colorful, vivid visuals involved in that gameplay. But at the same time, your viewer doesn't have context. They don't know where the video is going. What is the trajectory of the video? What mission or objective is trying to be accomplished? And a lot of this, and a lot of the different topics we're going to talk about today, are very basic, I'll admit it, but I'm not a huge proponent of overcomplicating things unnecessarily. And even if you look at top tier YouTube creators like Mr. Beast, for example, or some of the more prominent names out there, even on TikTok, really the fundamental equations for scaling on TikTok are really actually fairly simple. And I sort of want to emphasize those, and I also want to give you some additional tools that you can use in crafting a video that has good retention. So the first structure I want to share is what I've often talked about on YouTube, is what I unofficially call the promise to payoff video structure, or the promise to payoff model. For example, I'll give you an illustration. If I had uploaded a video and I'm talking about sending every single breed of animal in Minecraft to the end, I'm not going to start that video with me filling up buckets of lava or filling up buckets of water, for example. It just wouldn't make sense. That would be the wrong way to capture a viewer's retention. And you'll notice Mr. Beast or even other creators, not just on TikTok, but on YouTube as well, when it comes to the social media virality format, the very first thing is to give your viewer the full picture really within the first 10 seconds. For TikTok, I would honestly shorten that and maybe cut down that timeline to 3 to 5 seconds. You have 3 to 5 seconds to sell your viewer on a justification as to why your video is worth their time. Keep in mind, they're endlessly thumbing through their entire For You page. They stumble on your video. If you're lucky enough to capture their attention for maybe 1 to 2 seconds, clearly you're doing something right because you have created a bit of a pattern interrupt. There's something in your videos, whether it's bright colors, yellow, red, green. I mean, yellow and red psychologically are the two most eye-grabbing colors when it comes to marketing. There's a reason why McDonald's has branded themselves the way they have, and you often see those two primary color clashes on billboards. But even stepping away from the color scheme side of things, your audience needs to know what to expect. And you can often do this with multiple layers of information. You'll see a lot of people format videos horizontally on TikTok. It's a common format for compilation accounts where they'll have the black bars, the thematic black bars at the top and the bottom. A lot of the times it's just repurposed content downloaded from YouTube, which is also a vein that we can talk about a little bit later. But I've noticed just from different polls that we've conducted in some of our private communities and also our public ones as well, is that there is a general reception. There is a better reception to content that is formatted natively for TikTok. So we're talking about the classic, what is it, 9:16 aspect ratio. So just keep that in mind for anyone who is uploading right now the horizontal videos. I think it's fine, and certainly by no means is it a necessity that you take a 180-degree shift from what you've already built your account around. But keep in mind on TikTok that there is a better reception, even if it is by just a small percentage, to content that is formatted natively for TikTok. But that being said, kind of going back to the idea of the additional layers of information that you can add. Voiceovers work really, really well on TikTok for gaming accounts in particular, especially accounts that are not involving a physical personality showing up in the videos. A physical personality would be if I built out a Minecraft page, for example, and I was showing myself maybe green screened in the foreground of the video. Or you'll see the classic way people structure gaming videos on YouTube where they'll have themselves in a chair and they'll be green screened and the gameplay will be in the background. So I would just encourage you, if you don't have a magic way, or maybe it's a little bit difficult for you to come up with that video hook in the first few seconds, really, I think the most basic way that you can do that is make sure that you give all of the details about what's being attempted in the first few seconds. Or if you don't want to go down that route, try to add as much layers of information as you can. So if you let your audience know, maybe with text bubbles, for example, the little text graphics that you can put over your videos in-app on TikTok, that's also a really good way. It's a very simple way, and often you see a lot of people do it. But I think creators vastly underestimate the power of those word choices. So make sure that it's very clear. Make sure you provide clarity with the amount of words that you use. Preferably the shorter the description is with the text bubbles, the better. If you could have the ability to add a voiceover or maybe read that, if your character, your skin in Minecraft maybe has is actually speaking and you're recording your chat. So that's sort of the promise to payoff model. That the first thing I wanted to bring up and share with you all is keep in mind, I know it's a very simple structure, but it's something creators often vastly overthink when it comes to TikTok is what are the last few seconds of the video, and have you planted some kind of a seed in the first few seconds such that people know what's coming toward the end. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit, and I'm super excited to share with this because this is something, there's a new account that I'm working on with a client. And this is something we're experimenting with a lot, and that's the evolution of audio as a way of enhancing your content, especially with storytelling. So this is going to be touching upon different ways that you can include audio. And this is where I would afterwards, you'll have to reference the Google document I'll send, because there are some specific examples from Minecraft Nutty on TikTok, Twee Shorts, and then there's also Ozo Minecraft, which are 3 accounts that I think have really sort of seen high levels of virality on TikTok. I think they've got a few videos up there around 60 million views. But the first point I kind of want to touch upon here is with soundtracks and soundscapes. So it's one thing to simply record the in-game sounds, which I think is extremely valuable. It's kind of like we hinted at earlier, an additional layer of information that can keep your audience engaged. But at the same time, it can really, really level up the intensity of the environment that you're creating, or it could even emphasize the mood. Take a look or even just take a listen at what Clayton or Dream does so well in his content on YouTube is the mood, the intensity of certain moments, the conflict, the clash between certain characters is extremely well emphasized with soundtracks that are used. One up-and-coming account that has already been on the rise for a few months that I would recommend all of you look into is the Shorts channel Beluga. A lot of you are probably already familiar with his content, but he's really sort of pioneered the vein of content of adding sound effects every few seconds as a way of sort of revitalizing interest and engagement in the content. It's not just this placid, it's not just this stagnant video that simply has maybe some in-game sound effects in the background. There sort of is this central layer of audio that is either revitalizing interest or providing these pace changes in the video. And so you'll have to look at some of the examples that I'll reference in the document, but I really do want to stress the importance of utilizing audio in particular, whether that is individual sounds or maybe it is different songs on TikTok as a way of sort of revitalizing that interest. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I were to upload a video to TikTok that maybe was all about myself hunting with a bunch of friends in Minecraft, and sort of that was the preface. That's what the audience understood. And there was a happy, joyful soundtrack in the background. Well, where the revitalization of interest would come is about 5 to 8 seconds into that video, your audience would maybe start to lose attention, right? There's no action involved. There's nothing really major that stands out to them as a factor for why they should continue watching the video. What I might do in that situation, if this is the way you've structured the game, is maybe let's just say your friends turn against you and you realize that you're not in the midst of a bunch of friends, you're in the midst of a bounty hunter pack. And what you would do in that situation is change the audio. So maybe you wouldn't find a popular TikTok soundtrack that is happy. You would find something that is focused on intensity. It has build, right? You've got the orchestral drums pounding in the background. And that would sort of be a pace changer for the video. And if you look at a lot of what Twee Shorts does on Minecraft in particular, or even Ozo Minecraft, on the platform, these are both multi-million follower accounts. They do this a lot. They'll have, Ozo in particular has a lot of plot twists, I've noticed when watching some of his videos. Plot twist moments where, sort of like I mentioned with hunting in the forest with your friends, and then maybe they turn into a bounty hunter pack. That is what you would unofficially call a plot twist. And so that transition in audio is just a really, really subtle, but a very, very undervalued and powerful way to keep your viewer engaged. And remember, sort of the entire preface of this part of this workshop is focusing on mastering retention. So it's one thing to hook your viewer in, but if you're not keeping them engaged through hopefully the full duration of the video or even halfway through, what are you doing to reestablish the interest in the video? What are you saying? What are you doing? What are you including with the audio, whether that's individual sound effects, just to make sure that there's one thing after another, keeping the pacing on point? Or what are you doing with the soundtrack, or even the soundscapes? A soundscape is different from a soundtrack. A soundscape is basically an environmental sound, like birds chirping, for example, would be maybe a soundscape versus a soundtrack, which would be maybe orchestral music. It's action-based, it's drama, something that sort of sets the mood. So that's one thing I would encourage a lot of you to look a little bit more into, and something that if I were to start, and maybe I will do this, and I'm thinking about doing this
Guys,
for sort of a documentary YouTube video. I think would be really beneficial for people. But if I were to build, let's just say, a Minecraft account from scratch, account from scratch, I would highly, highly focus on utilizing audio in the background as a way of sort of setting the stage, building the intensity of what's going on, and really driving home some of the events that are happening in the video as a whole. Now, the other thing I also want to mention as well is I don't want to just shotgun blast that idea out there and not give you any practical information here. So as far as audio sources that I use, and I know a lot of other creators, especially in the Fortnite space, the Valorant space on TikTok use, Motion Array is a really, really solid website. They do have a free audio library that actually is pretty vast, but they also have a premium version as well, which I also access. Epidemic Sound, in addition to Motion Array, is a really, really good resource. Epidemic also has a free audio library, very limited in what you can download, but those are great for particular soundtracks. I know that's where Dream sources all of his soundtracks from as well, the editors that work on his videos. But just sort of as a recap of this idea, so we talked about the promise to payoff model, right? What are you setting in the first few seconds of your video that give people something to look forward to later on, right? Basic video structure 101. And then we also talked about the evolution of audio, which is something that I think you're really going to see have more emphasis, not just on YouTube, but especially on TikTok. One of the things I mentioned in one of the latest YouTube videos is an update in which TikTok is experimenting with 10-minute long videos on TikTok. And they've also allowed 15-minute videos unofficially. It's a beta feature that they're testing with. And this is something that Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, I had reached out to a few Douyin creators because I was really curious myself. What are the actual concepts that people are outputting on Douyin that are spanning 15 minutes and actually are successful? And they showed me an example of a video that had 14 million views. And I'll tell you, the only reason why it was somewhat engaged through that entertainment video was because of the audio that was used in the background. It really was, I would love to connect with that creator in particular, but it really was a masterclass in how audio is such a powerful thread through the video background in keeping the viewer engaged. And I think the same can absolutely be applied 1,000,000% to gaming content in Minecraft as well. I mean, heck, the game even won multiple awards for the simple piano soundtrack. So it's got those audio roots ingrained into its origin. The next thing I want to move on to, still under this point of mastering retention, is what we call, or what I call, the limitation creation concept. And the limitation creation concept, for those of you who are maybe newer to TikTok or have smaller accounts, this is really, I think, one of the most clever ways that I've seen creators break the molds and really put their videos on the map and put their account on the radar of everyone else. So this is sort of a die-hard template that a lot of musicians will often use on TikTok, but gamers in particular often make use of the limitation creation structure, which is, in very simple terms, taking some standard thing that you would do in a game. Let's just say you're playing Minecraft, but you're handicapping yourself in some way. So let me give you an example from one of Beast Trigger's, Mike's videos on TikTok. One of his that I saw the other day was, trying to remember the exact title. I think it was Minecraft, but if I touch the color white, the game ends, or something along those lines, right? He's taking a standard action that you would do, such as playing the game, but there is a limitation. There is a consequence that will happen if something goes wrong or something goes right in the game. And again, this is a video that I'll link in the Google document that you can take a look at afterwards for reference. But that's sort of the idea of limitation creation, is a lot of people will, especially a lot of new creators, and I'm also guilty of this myself whenever I've started a new account. It's hard to sort of outline those first few videos that you want to put out. And when you start to do that and you start getting the other similar videos fed to you on your For You, you do start to feel a little bit overwhelmed, and you end up feeling like just another fish in the pond. How does my content compare? What shot do I have in comparison to all of these other creators that are doing the same thing, or they're doing something so much better than I am and pulling in 14 million views per video? Well, one of the easiest ways that you can break through to massive distribution of your videos in particular is to do something that is quite standard on Minecraft, for example, or Fortnite, or whatever your particular niche is when it comes to gameplays. But try to think of a way that you can handicap yourself, whether you're handicapping your character, or I've seen a lot of people handicap themselves physically. For example, there was a creator that I worked with a while ago, and one of the things that he did, this was his idea, but one of the things he did very cleverly in the video was he was right-handed. He's not ambidextrous, so he's not good with both hands. But one of the things that he did was he basically told his audience that he was going to play just with his left hand. That was a challenge. Everyone knew he was not left-handed. He started playing. We're obviously recording the entire process. It was hilarious. The video ended up getting something around, I think it was less than 5 million views, but over 4. And that was a good example of him doing something that's absolutely standard, but handicapping himself, taking action on that limitation creation concept. And you'll see, just right before this, I was sort of browsing TikTok a little bit to look at when I searched certain keywords in the Minecraft space, what were some of the top accounts that came up? And there were a lot that were making use of this limitation creation concept that had massive videos. And then when I looked at their follower account, it was actually pretty small. So there's a lot of proof of concepts that these ideas are really good for breaking out creators, especially if they're building from scratch. And one little, actually, I thought of this right now, but one little tactic I want to give you, especially if you are a smaller account, maybe under 10,000 followers. And it's funny to me because I'm so amazed how much the sheer virality and what's possible on TikTok has really cheapened and jaded our perceptions of certain audience sizes. For example, people throw around, and I'm guilty of this just as much as anyone else, but they throw around terms like 100,000 followers or 1 million followers like it's something that's easily achievable for everyone. And certainly, if you understand the platform a little bit, you do have a better shot than most. But people still just underplay how much of a sizable audience that really is. And so for any of you that have scaled on TikTok, I just want to give you props and take a moment to appreciate really how much truly human attention you've amassed on your content. But for those that are just starting out, obviously keep up the grind. One tip I do want to give you as well, when you're doing research on TikTok and you're looking at other accounts, maybe you're taking inspiration from ideas or you're building on top of what someone has sort of already kickstarted, don't just look at their latest and greatest content, because one thing that often creators miss is the realization that they've already built up and amassed a sizable following that is contributing heavily to the early engagement on those videos. And one thing that's important to understand about TikTok, and one thing I'll also summarize in the document as well, is as you continue to build an audience on TikTok, TikTok expects you to increase the engagement of that audience as well, where you see a lot of accounts plateau. And the same is true with individual creators as it is true with those of you who are in the gaming landscape, is you'll see a lot of creators that will sort of shotgun blast a variety of different ideas out there, especially if they're a gamer. Maybe they do play Call of Duty, they play Minecraft, they play, other EA games, for example. And one of those eventually does really, really well. They'll have one of those videos that shoots up to something like 4 million views. Well, that almost becomes a scenario where that virality shoots themselves in the foot, because now they've built up an audience of, let's just say, 10,000 followers that follows them for that particular style of content. And now they're sort of locked in. They're ironclad with this fan base that is that came to them for that particular reason. And so you see a lot of accounts plateau. There's a video that I'm going to be putting out here soon on YouTube, in which I want to title it "Why Most Accounts Actually Stop Growing at Around 100,000 Followers." And it's for this exact same reason. There's actually 3 reasons, but this is easily the flagship reason. Is they'll experiment too much in the beginning. They'll have a few videos that do well, but that ends up building them an audience that they're not really interested in. Sure, they end up adding 100,000 followers, but it's not a diehard fan base that they really truly want to engage with and build their brand or build their account around long term. So sort of back, I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but back to the idea of the tip I wanted to give beginners, I would recommend not just looking at the latest and greatest content on a profile, because obviously that's day 300 of someone else and you're on day 1 or day 2. So first of all, it's not a fair comparison. And second of all, your goal should be to work towards your first breakthrough video. And your first breakthrough video is a video over 1 million views. And so that sort of is the first milestone, the first goalpost that you're pushing towards as an account. And what I would encourage you to do is look at some of these other profiles, but scroll all the way down to the bottom of their grid and look at their first breakthrough videos. What were the ideas that they put out there that really put them on the map? Because keep in mind, they didn't have a massive fan base at that point, at least in most cases. And so if you don't have a fan base, you don't really have to have high engagement on your videos. What you do need to have is really what the first half of this conversation is about, and that is good retention. So that video that had 1 million views had somewhat decent retention. And so those are the videos that you want to reverse engineer. Their first videos that are at a breakthrough status, not their latest videos that are, because they've already have a seasoned audience and they have a much better understanding of what vibes with the fan base that they've built up, because listen, they already have 100 or 200 videos uploaded on TikTok, and that sheer volume of uploads is going to do wonders in terms of helping you discover yourself on TikTok and discover your audience a little bit better. So that's sort of a way of unofficially ending the thought on limitation creation. The other thing I want to mention as well, still under this point of mastering retention on TikTok, is when it comes to editing. And I've titled this point, Editing Out the Buffer Moments. This is huge. This is where I've made many mistakes in the past and still where I tend to have strategic hiccups when I work with other accounts on TikTok. I'll give you a great example. There's a friend of mine who has a fitness supplements brand on TikTok, and he recently had a video that got around 15 million views. The account is I think the username is MuscleX or MuscleX.nz. Just search MuscleX and you'll find the account. But there's a video on there that has around 15 million views. And we were reviewing the analytics a while ago. And the video was 102 seconds long, so it's a really long video. I mean, it's pushing almost 2 minutes on TikTok. And video got 15 million views. It was all about a customer story. And when we were looking at the video, there was a point about roughly 80 seconds or 90 seconds through the video where he had answered all the questions people would have based on the hook that he set in the first few seconds. There were some strategic keywords that he was throwing out. Kale, the person who owns the company, and I was sort of just mentally kicking myself when we were analyzing the video, because at the end there was a solid 15 to 20 seconds where he was sort of further emphasizing things, and it's what we would call a fluff moment in the content where it was not necessary to the video whatsoever. And I just know if we would have trimmed that out, even if the video was shorter, just based on the sheer watch time, which by the way was about 65 to 68 seconds, which is phenomenal for a video that is 102 seconds long. I just know that video would have been potentially 20, 25 million views. So there was a massive opportunity cost there because of the fact that there was fluff at the end of the video. And I can't tell you how many times I'll often look at videos, not just on my For You, but in my own independent research ventures on TikTok, where there will be too much fluff or too much what we call buffer moments in the content, where you're explaining things unnecessarily, or you're kind of showing like the travel of maybe your character or your skin walking across a biome, for example. Like, this is something that I really do want to emphasize. I think Dream, when it comes to his videos on TikTok, really has done this masterfully. As you'll notice in a lot of his videos, it seems like the whole story is there, but what you don't realize is that when you slow down the video and you watch it at, let's just say, 0.25 speed, there are so many hidden cuts that edit out dull moments or lull parts in the videos. And what made me really realize this is when I was able to see the full 3-hour streams of the entire Dream SMP playing together. And then you realize that the 45-minute version or the 30-minute version that makes it to YouTube is only the concentrated action bits. And so a lot of people miss this when it comes to TikTok videos, where you really, really have to keep that action and that intensity really concentrated down, more so than YouTube. People will stick around longer on YouTube, but for TikTok, where the average attention span, based on a report from TikTok, is 2 to 3 seconds. And then Snapchat did a study as well on their spotlight videos and found that it was even worse than that. It was people make the decision whether or not to watch your video within 1 to 2 seconds on average, even sometimes just by the few first frames of your video. So for better, for worse, you have really that first visual that people see as your sell point in which you have to capture your audience. And so that's why often keeping a fast pace really helps. I mean, how likely is it just for someone to click away mid-sentence? I mean, it's certainly people do it, but it's a bit of a pattern interrupt that they sort of have to initiate themselves. And so that's why voiceovers often really, really help. We touched upon this earlier, is it makes it less likely that your viewer is going to break the attention that you're trying to capture in your video. And so sort of this point of editing out the buffer moments, I would really encourage a lot of you to be conscious if this part of your video is not integral to the concept or the upload that you're bringing to TikTok. Well, then I would encourage you to take the initiative and edit it out. And the same thing is true at the end of your video. Just like I talked about with Kale and his MuscleX profile on TikTok, after you deliver the promise, like we talked about, or the payoff, like we talked about with the promise to payoff structure, where you've got that seed planted in the beginning. Once you fulfill on your word at the very end, or in Bees Trigger's example, maybe once you step on the color white, like that's when the video should end. Don't overemphasize things, because once people got what they came for, they're out of there as quickly as possible. Now, the only exception in which I think it would be a good idea, maybe not to cut things out at every single opportunity, is if you're going for a video loop. So you'll see a lot of these videos on TikTok. They're what people call verbal loops, where, for example, maybe if you start the video out with the greatest account on TikTok is this account, fill in the blank. It's Kabi Lame. I mean, that's not my personal belief, but that's just an example. And then maybe you go through at the very end of the video, you say something like, and this is why, that's the last sentence of the video, and that loops back around to the beginning, which maybe the first sentence was, Kabi Lame's account is the greatest account on TikTok, right? So there's that verbal loop, and that is less likely to result in your viewers scrolling on by because they feel more like there's a seamless knitting together of the end and the beginning. And there's certainly a lot that Kabi in particular has done right. He's actually done a lot of these verbal loops on TikTok, and I do want to do a separate video on YouTube sort of breaking down his genius strategies because he does have a very, very solid understanding of how to capture attention. One of the things, I don't want to go off on too much of a rabbit trail here, but one thing I did want to mention is with his content, there is an inherent theme of universality. And universality is just a fancy way of saying it appeals to most people. Most people will look at his videos and find it interesting. They will find it funny. And so you'll often notice for the Minecraft space on TikTok or the gaming landscape in general, some of the more viral videos out there have more universal appeal. There is a common denominator that most people are interested in. It's a character people are familiar with. They're doing something in an area, in a biome, using a tool that most people are familiar with. And if you check that box of appealing to most people, those videos on TikTok generally have the most, I don't want to say in every case, but more times than not, they have the most viral potential. So just keep that in mind. But that's one thing I do want to heavily emphasize is editing out those buffer moments and just be very, very intentional with the edits and the cuts that you're making. And so speaking of being intentional, the next point that I want to move on to, still under this umbrella of mastering retention, is focus on creating demand with your content. So we're going to have a Q&A section at the end of this. But one thing, one of the common questions a lot of people do ask is, what's the ideal upload frequency? How many times should I be uploading to TikTok? And this may come as a bit of a shock factor to you and a surprise, but there really is no magic upload frequency formula that works for everyone. Really, the solution, and this is sort of where TikTok 2022 is headed and where we've seen the platform evolve over these past 2 years, is it's becoming less about content at scale and just shotgun blasting amount of videos out there just to check that daily upload box. And it's becoming more about, well, fundamentally quality over quantity, but really, really focusing on putting your very best effort into each and every video. Because let's face it, viewers, your audience, my audience, they're not stupid. They can tell if you threw a video together or if you're really giving it your all and you're really going that extra mile. And that eventually, here's the big kicker, that snowballs into you building trust with your audience. You're going to get to a point where it really doesn't matter how much you upload or what you upload. People know that you're intentional behind what you do. They know that every video that you press publish on is something that you believe you want to share with your audience, and they're conditioned to watch because you have that good track record. My way of boiling this down is to be a sniper, right? Not a machine gunner. Certainly there's something to be said about just shotgun blasting or spraying a lot of videos out there, and it works for some. I mean, you eventually get some videos that do well, but you sort of lose that attention and it becomes watered down by the other videos that maybe didn't have your full efforts behind, or it's just an idea that, you thought you would share on TikTok because you didn't post a video today and you might as well upload something versus nothing. Well, I would encourage you to reconsider that mindset for TikTok, because we're officially to the point now as of October of this last year where there are more creators on TikTok than consumers. And so creators, you and I, whether we're in the Minecraft space or we're in any other niche on TikTok, we're having to be a lot more intentional with the videos that we output. And so I would encourage you, think of a massive meme page on TikTok like Daquan or F Jerry, for example. Why is there so much attention on each and every one of those videos? Why are they really the flagship meme accounts that people often think of on Instagram? Well, it's because they curate the very, very best of the best of what these different niches or what the internet really has to share. And so people know when they post, it matters. They're commenting, they're engaging, they're watching the full video, because if it's something that a 15 or a 20 million followed theme page is willing to share, you know they're doing that for the reason. And they're pulling that upload trigger because they believe that this is really a shot worth sharing with their audience. And so certainly if you already have developed an upload frequency of outputting multiple videos a day and that's working for your audience, that's awesome. I would encourage you to stick with that. But again, remember, focus on creating demand. Sometimes the magic formula, well, I don't want to phrase it that way, but sometimes the best thing that you can do on TikTok is actually to cut down your upload frequency and put more effort into the edits, into the structure, into the entire concept of the video, rather than just outputting 2 extra videos a day. So the last point I want to make under this mastering retention section is to create a narrative. And creating a narrative is something that I think is drastically undervalued when it comes to gaming profiles in particular. Creating a narrative really is you could do this in different ways. A lot of people will tell stories. I think stories inherently have good trajectory. We talked about trajectory earlier, creating direction in your video, giving people a justification as to why it's worth their time. Characters also have great trajectory as well. I am just waiting for, and I've seen a few of these on TikTok. I'm really curious if someone can scale these over 10 million followers. I know, for example, someone like Dream has done this, where his character is easily recognizable and you're sort of following his character along on a journey. I think if someone had sort of coined, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but maybe if you created a Minecraft skin or a character and you called him, I don't know, anti-mirror. Like I've always been fascinated by, the question, what color is a mirror? But maybe you called him anti-mirror, which is sort of like a mind-boggling name. And it was all, the profile was built around his journey. So there was an objective in mind, right? There's a narrative that's sort of threaded through the entire profile. Every video is an update on Anti-Mirror's journey to accomplish this or meet this. And there's a lot of opportunity for threading through other creators who can sort of join in on the server and can be in all these events and experiences that Anti-Mirror has. So that's sort of the idea of creating a narrative, at least from a profile standpoint, building an account around this idea. You can also do this with individual videos. For example, I think when creators or gamers choose to share personal experiences or they narrate their thoughts live. Hey, funny story. I'm going to share something with you that's extraordinarily moving. It's incredibly funny. This event was incredibly romantic, right? Those are called using what are known as power words. It's something I would recommend that you look into, and I'm going to include a few articles in the document that I'll share with you afterwards. Power words are it's heavily rooted in science. These are certain words that are psychologically proven to be more attention grabbing and enticing. And they're great ways to start a story if you're sharing something or if you're building a narrative. Make sure that you give people, you let them know what emotion or what feeling, what sentiment this video is based on. Like I said, romantic, funny, moving. This event was epically sad, right? I'm not sure if that falls into the power words list, but that's sort of an extension of that format. So that's the other thing that I think has massive potential on TikTok, especially in the Minecraft space and in the gaming in general, is creating a narrative, whether with an individual profile or outputting videos that are built around stories or that are built around a character trying to accomplish something. And that's sort of the hero, right? The full subject of the narrative, the direction, and the trajectory of that video in particular. So that sort of brings to a close this first section of mastering retention in your videos. I promise that was the longest one, and certainly I'll be available for questions if there's anything that I can clarify there in particular. But I want to move on to talk a little bit about monetization when it comes to these accounts on TikTok. And I'll tell you, let me briefly give you some context on how I've monetized, and then I'll talk a little bit about really, I think, where the potential lies in these coming months, especially when it comes to internal features that TikTok is about to release, and then some external methods using some third-party apps. So I will mention just in general that, listen, we're entertainers. If you have a compilation account or if you're building it around a Minecraft character or a certain style of content, Admittedly, you are going to have a little bit more of an uphill battle in monetizing, more so than maybe an educator who's focused more on helping people with knowledge or improving themselves, self-improvement, and sort of things in that vein of content. So certainly it's not to say it's impossible, but people are watching you for entertainment. They don't want to be pitched. And so whatever monetization efforts or any ways of you taking your followers to the bank, I mean, I never like to say it that way because at the end of the day, you want to create a win-win situation for you and your audience where they're benefiting from something that you believe in and you're also getting a stipend for that. So it's worth there's a financial incentive for you. But all that being said and done, you do have to keep it very, very subtle. I would not, and I've seen profiles absolutely kill their potential by putting out a standalone video on their account that has nothing whatsoever to do with their entire theme. I'll give you a hilarious example. There was an account I connected with probably about a year ago, and he was based in the motivational quotes niche. He had an account that had around 2.8 or 2.9 million followers, pretty substantial profile. And he got sponsored by a tire company like rubber tires for cars. And he put out a video that was around 60 seconds long of him simply sharing why he thinks these tires are the best tires for your vehicle. And here's their website. And it was all this, like, you couldn't get more pitchy than that. And you could see not only did he have unfollows after that point because people thought he'd turned for the worse, but you started to see just a drastic drop off in a view deficit where I don't want to say it was cut by 40%, but it was significant. It was greater than 20%. So that's sort of worst case scenario. That's not the avenue you want to go down. Generally, the way that you do it is you try to create some affinity, which means there's some similarity between your audience and the niche that you've really scaled your profile around, and the product, the game, and we'll talk a little bit more practical here in just a second, but whatever it is that you're sharing with your audience as an opportunity. Now, I do want to mention as well, a lot of people often ask about the threshold for monetization. When should I start monetizing my profile and thinking about ways in which I can turn a profit on my influence? My rule of thumb, and I want to give you 2 reasons why this is kind of what I recommend. My rule of thumb is really you shouldn't be thinking about monetization until you have around 500,000 followers on TikTok. If you're in the gaming space, if you're a creator, individual, you're talking about cooking, for example, I would say it's around 100,000. But because of the fact that gaming accounts and compilation accounts that don't feature an actual human being scale often much quicker than those that do, you're going to have to push out that goalpost for monetization. And I've worked with a few influencer campaigns or worked in a few and conducted a few influencer campaigns on TikTok. And I'll tell you, just from sort of a business and agency perspective, I really won't look at accounts that have less than 500,000 followers or even 1 million followers, because you'll see a lot of profiles on TikTok that maybe have 243,000 followers, or they're in that ballpark, not that particular number, but they have less than 100,000, they're a little over 100,000. There are a lot of profiles out there that just got lucky and had one viral video and built a massive fan base, and there's no longevity in their audience. And so someone who's at the level of 500,000 followers or 1 million has a good understanding of TikTok. I mean, within reason, most of them do. And they've gotten to a point where more likely than not, they've identified a proven formula that they're able to replicate on their videos over and over again. And chances are, if they're pulling, roughly 10% of their audience in terms of viewers, so they're pulling maybe a minimum of 100,000 views per video, it's a really good profile that you have the potential to work with. And there's a relative guarantee that you're going to see about 100,000 views on a video that maybe you choose to work with them on. So keep that in mind, that even if you are a smaller account, it's good to keep these things in the back of your mind, because now you can sort of build your strategy around working toward these objectives. But I wouldn't rush the monetization process. There's always going to be many opportunities, and I want to touch upon them right here. So the first sort of sub-point under monetization is leveraging your influence. This is really the most common, stereotypical way in which creators on TikTok in the gaming space will turn a profit with their account, is they will list their account as a medium to shout out other profiles or to go down the route of leveraging someone's audio. They'll do what are called paid audio promotions, where maybe a musician will pay you $50 or $100 to post a video that uses their soundtrack in the background. And there are a lot of Discord groups that actually revolve around this. Unfortunately, I'm not able to simply hand out the link because a lot of them are exclusive, but I would encourage you, never stop networking with other accounts on TikTok. I got access to these because I was just having conversations and in some group chats with other creators on the platform that I actually reached out to. They didn't reach out to me. It's not like they saw my YouTube videos and invited me. These were purely my own outreach efforts. And so there are a lot of these that do present incredible viable opportunities for you to make some decent money on TikTok with these accounts. This is what I would do for a lot of the old compilation accounts that I ran. One of them was actually a while ago. It was in the Minecraft space. And a few of those videos, were bringing in a few $100s each based on me using certain audio selections that some musicians had shouted out and posted in these Discord groups, and they were willing to pay, accounts that were able to guarantee the most views per video. So if you would guarantee, let's just say 500,000 views for, something like $300, basically the less that you would charge and the more that you can guarantee, those are essentially where those are the people that would take the cake. So there were many opportunities like that came just by networking and joining certain Discord groups that focus on audio promotions. Now, if you're not there yet, there are websites like Pearpop. Pearpop is not associated with TikTok directly. It was actually, Pearpop is spelled Pearpop, pear like the fruit. And it is a third-party marketplace where a lot of creators on TikTok who have substantial fan bases will list their account. And there are a lot of musicians, there are brands that look on that site for accounts that they can pay creators a small stipend to use audio in their videos. I've also at one time listed a few different accounts on Fiverr. I wouldn't recommend that just because those that tend to leverage Fiverr in particular for audio promotions usually are those that don't have a very great understanding of TikTok. Certainly, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, but I've just found the quality of people that message you on Fiverr is significantly lower than those that already know about a platform like Pearpop, for example. But specifically with Fiverr, I would list some compilation accounts and say, I'll guarantee 500,000 views. And whether that was just with one video or I would keep posting with the audio until he reached that threshold, that's another way that you can also guarantee views as well. People love certainty. No one likes just partnering with an account where you'll say you'll post it and they're very contentious and nervous to pay $100 up front, not knowing how many views they're going to get. So if you can guarantee views, I can tell you you'll land infinitely more audio promotion opportunities versus if you just agree to post it and use it in one video, for example. But Fiverr is a good avenue to look into, and so that's sort of leveraging your influence with audio promotions in particular. Let me give you, I want to transition here to talk about another monetization opportunity, and that is when it comes to affiliates with games or mobile apps that are coming out. I think there is massive, massive potential here, especially in 2022. I think this is an extremely undervalued vein of monetization where, I'll give you an example. So there isn't a game, I can't mention the game because I did work with them, but there was a game that paid me a 50% sales commission on whoever paid for the app, as long as the referral stayed a customer, which is basically lifetime revenue, especially if it's a per month membership. They download the app from the App Store or Google Play, and there's a commission structure set up where if they had accessed the app and downloaded it because you had included the link in your bio or you mentioned it in a TikTok video, for example, then you basically, you have this unlimited stream of revenue as long as the referral stays a customer. So what I would encourage a lot of you to do, and this is something I've really only shared with this group, so don't think that this is something I mentioned in YouTube videos. I say this because I'm researching this more, and the more and more I look into it, the more I realize I think this is really going to take off a little bit later this year, is creators that do research themselves in finding upcoming games. So I would look at websites like Pocket Gamer, for example. They have really good lists of games that are coming out, and they sort of have a prediction or popularity level that you can look at. Fall Guys, which is obviously was a very, very huge game back in the day, was on this list. No one believed it was going to be as popular as sort of the website ranked it, turned out to be. So it's pretty good at predicting the overall popularity and cultural reception to these games. But I would look at websites like Pocket Gamer. I would search Google Play or App Store, look at the release dates find some of the most recent games on there, and then reach out to them and offer, hey, I've got an account that has 500,000 followers. Here's my engagement rate. I can guarantee you 500,000 views per video. Can we work out some sort of pay up front or commission based brand deal or sponsorship? Now, admittedly, there's, I wish I could make this easier for you. You're going to have to do some tilling of the fields and do some cold outreach yourselves and find the emails and reach out to these brands. But I know some creators in a few Discord groups that are doing this very, very masterfully and have been reaping in the profits. One resource I will give you is to look into creating a media kit for your account. So a media kit basically is a deck or basically a very simplified PDF that lists out your most viral videos, which sort of is representative of what your account is capable of. If you've had a video that has, for example, like I never landed a sponsorship for the Cristiano Ronaldo account that I mentioned earlier that I still own to this day. But one of the most viral videos, I think there's a video on there that has around 40 million views. And that video is something that I know really, really caught the eye of a lot of people that I sort of pitched that account to when I was trying to till the fields and do some digging in the trenches for monetization avenues. So create a media kit. There's a website, mediakits.com. They have a free version, which is more than enough. You can link one social media platform. In this case, it would be TikTok. And it creates a media kit for you. They also have a paid version, which is also good as well and worth looking into if you feel that investment necessary. Media kits is a great place to start. You can also easily do this yourself. Go onto a website like canva.com and you can basically just create a list of what your profile has to offer. What are your top viral videos? What is your average engagement rate? And you can just Google engagement calculator TikTok and you can automatically calculate that. You can list a few examples of your best performing videos, the quality that you could guarantee, list the comments, like how active is your audience and things like that. And so this is what you would send to any upcoming apps or games that you potentially reach out to. And the reason why I say apps and games in particular is because these, generally speaking, more times than not, are the highest paying brand deals and sponsorships when it comes to the entertainment space on TikTok. So a lot of you have the Minecraft accounts, you have accounts that are heavily involved in entertaining people. And so pitching someone an educational program, for example, or something that is more in tune to a larger investment is not going to appeal to them. Remember, we talked about earlier, keeping that pitch very subtle, keeping it direct, and making sure that you lower the barrier of entry of someone having to open their wallet. And when I say that, if they're paying a few bucks, most people will, within reason, consider that opportunity. If you're asking for them to pay $29 a month for, I don't know, the next version of Hulu Plus that is coming out, well, there's not going to be a whole lot of people interested in that because they're just used to watching your gaming content, right? That's why they come to you, and that's why you've amassed the following that you have already. So just to sort of condense the information, look into affiliates. I think that has massive opportunity, not just for TikTok, but we're going to see this on YouTube coming soon. You're going to have to find some upcoming games. Look into, try to find these releases, whether they're already out maybe a few days ago or they have massive opportunity in terms of their release coming soon. Know your numbers for your account. That's also something I would stress heavily as well. And then sort of the last thing I want to mention in this monetization vein, and this is an exciting feature that I've seen TikTok experiment with the beta version of their app, which, by the way, any of you can access by going to, they do occasionally cap the amount of people every 30 days. So if there's a first of the month that comes around, you can go into the manage my account section, I think, on TikTok, go down to, what is it? I'm mind blanking right now. It says join TikTok tester mode or something like that. I mentioned this in one of my recent videos, and you can join that version of TikTok, and it's a great way to get access to some of these early features. One of them is a subscription-based feed where a lot of you are familiar with the tips already that you can give creators inside TikTok. You can use their in-app currency, their diamonds and their stickers, and you can award a creator, which is something that is usually best requested of your audience on a live stream. But TikTok is also releasing, potentially coming soon. I don't know what the release date of this is yet, but there's supposedly going to be an exclusive content feed where your audience maybe pays, I don't know what the threshold is, but maybe they pay 30 cents a month or something like that, and you upload a few videos per week or a few videos a month, that are for your exclusive audience only. Kind of like an in-app Patreon is the way that a lot of people like to think about it. Patreon is a platform where you can support your favorite creator and pay, $2 a month to get access to some behind-the-scenes content or benefits or something like that. And so there are lots of incentives you can give your audience. And so I would encourage you just, a lot of you be thinking about this in advance if this is something you want to pull the trigger on. I get it's not for everyone. I actually asked on Instagram, my audience, how many people would use a subscription-based feature on TikTok. And I believe the split was about 40% to 60%. 60% were in favor of using it. 40% said no. So you're going to have close to, I think, a 50% split. Some people are in favor of this idea because it gives them another monetization avenue. The other half, or the other 40%, don't believe this is a good move for TikTok. But I do think for especially entertainment accounts, if there's behind the scenes, or for those people, for example, who want to know how you edit things, or where do you source your sound effects, like those sort of nitty gritty in the trenches details are always great. And I'll tell you, the creators that I support on Patreon that I pay monthly for are those that do just that. Like I'm almost always seeking them out in supporting them because I want to know how they create their content, and I want to know a little bit about how they structure things. So before we sort of end things here, I do want to touch upon the last section, and I promise this will be less than 5 minutes. And I want to touch upon a little bit on the meaningful impact behind things, because we talked about mastering retention, right? There are some important tactics we can apply to the way we structure videos. We talked about some monetization avenues that are up and coming, things that you can do in the meantime. But what is really all of this for? Let's just say hypothetically you end up scaling to 3 million followers on TikTok. Okay, good. You've built an audience. Like, you've done well. And certainly everyone listening in here, if you're on TikTok, clearly you recognize the potential. And if you're active in this group, I mean, I just joined recently, but I had the chance to browse through some of these threads. I see some really good conversations going on. And I think this group in particular, at least just based on my superficial exploration, has a decent understanding of TikTok. And, I've been able to look at some profiles in advance as well. So one thing that I would mention as far as the meaningful impact is focus on what can you do to create memorability with your profile. And this really, as simple and cliche as it sounds, it may sound like a bit like a broken record here, but this is the biggest struggle that creators have on TikTok, is making themselves memorable. Everyone sort of starts out as a flounder or a fish in a pond. What can you do to make yourself a shark in the water and be different from what others are doing? And so this really is what separates the good creators from the great creators, or maybe the opposite. This is what separates those who really master the platform from those that sort of just blend in with the minutia of the masses. And so one thing that I would encourage you to look into is, what can you do that is verbal? Whether it's something that you say in your content, is there something that you can do that is visual? I mean, think like Dream. When people think of Dream, they think of the classic neon bright skin and the obscure smiley face right there on his torso. Like, that is sort of a visual branding. That's something that you can't quantify. Like, that is a qualitative aspect about the way he's branded themselves that has created memorability and recognizability in his content. You want to get to the point where you have people scrolling on the For You page and they stop on your video and they say, oh, that's Beastturger's video, or that's Ozo Minecraft's video. And I remember this not because of the username. They remember that because of this, right? And whatever this is, like that missing variable, that really is the answer to the equation, you plus what equals viral content. Like, once you can figure out what makes you different, that's really when profiles often take off on TikTok, because there's immediately recognizability amongst your audience on the For You page. And so just to give you some idea generators for things that you can think of if you don't already have this, I know a lot of you probably already have those unique elements that you focus on, but think of a catchphrase, something that you can say in your videos. A lot of people will, use signature skins, for example, and these are things that eventually later on down the road, when you build out your profile on TikTok to 5 million followers plus, or you go over to Instagram, like you can create merch, you can create apparel with these unique elements in mind. I mean, think if any of you have ordered apparel in the past, or have merch or wear merch from any of your favorite creators, more often than not, it ties into something that they do that is unique to them that really no one else replicates. And so those are the profiles that have longevity on TikTok, that just don't become another Minecraft account or become another Cristiano Ronaldo account. Like, certainly these are things that I've done that are mistakes, that I've made is not focusing early enough on really trying to give it some solid thought. What makes me unique, and what are things that I can do that others, for the most part, cannot just go ahead and replicate on a whim. So it can be visual, it can be verbal, it could also be a sound effect. Like, this is something that I'm trying to convince a friend of mine to do, is create a unique sound effect that is played every single time his character does or his skin does a certain action. He actually plays Fortnite. And every single time he does a particular action, I'm like, oh, you've got to have a sound effect in there. And that's something that people will remember. Like, create that custom sound effect, and that starts to become an inside joke for your audience. So I have not seen that really well done on TikTok just yet. And I would encourage you, to give that some thought and sort of entertain that addition to your content. So the last thing I want to mention here is collaborative amplification. And collaborative amplification, for me, has really been the biggest benefit of TikTok. I'll tell you, it's great that you could scale the profile. It's great that you can have a somewhat decent understanding of the platform. And certainly by no means do I claim to be a master or a wizard of all things TikTok. I'm still learning. I still always like to have a student mindset and to be open to change and acknowledge, of course, where I can improve my ability to communicate certain aspects of TikTok. But I will tell you, the biggest benefit that I've had is networking, is being able to partner with other creators and share ideas that I've learned from the platform to help others out. I think a common mistake a lot of creators make, when they're searching or they discover something that's working, is that they're very afraid and hesitant to share that with others. And this is a very, very common mistake that you'll even hear Mr. Beast talk about, is creators feel like keeping their cards close to their chest is the right course of action. If they share that, they'll somehow be fueling their competition, right? Another account could do better. It'll take the idea that I've shared and sort of scale that further. I think honestly, and I say this in all sincerity, I think that's the wrong way to think about it. When you're open with others, at least in my experience, you will find more times than not, they will reciprocate that openness. They will share things with you that have worked for them, and you sort of all grow together, and you all build up vertically versus one of you building out laterally and then you not wanting to share information because you're afraid that they'll have a taller tower than you. Like, that's not the way to think about it. And so I would encourage you as well, if you find a smaller creator out there who you think has a lot of potential, don't be afraid to shout them out or to work out some kind of value exchange. Like, when I grew multiple compilation accounts, I did not do all these myself. I owned the account and I was sort of the strategy and the brains behind it, but they were the brawn. Other creators did a lot of the sort of the nitty gritty editing. And one system that I had in place is I would find other accounts on TikTok that were in a similar niche that I thought had a lot of potential, but didn't have massive profiles. And I would reach out to them and say, hey, I'm willing to pay you if you can edit for this account. Here are some ideas that I want to implement. And I'll tell you, as soon as we sort of cut our ties and I decided to sell the account or transition over to something else, like, they would go on and use a lot of the same tactics, and they would scale their accounts to pretty significant numbers. And even think back to how Dream has sort of grown the Dream SMP network. It's popularity by association. George Not Found, Sapnap, some of these other creators have all grown and have built out their personalities. You could argue they may have done well solo by themselves, but they've also have had amazing experiences and have had their chance at making it by association with Dream. And so I would encourage you, just as kind of a final thought here before we open things up for Q&A, is don't be afraid to network. Reach out to as many creators as you can. My rule of thumb, and I do this every single morning, is I reach out to 3 people that I would love to make a connection with. Now, of course, like, the open rate of my emails, I'm not the best at copywriting, but I will say that I do make some incredible connections here and there. It's one of the main reasons why I ended up actually making a few connections with TikTok, and I've been able to interview one of their content moderators is because of those messages that I've been able to send out. And certainly that would have not have been possible if I just focused on my grind and uploading content, even though that certainly is very important. It's not the be all end all of why you're on social media. So it's necessary, certainly, to work your way up if you want to collaborate with others. Again, you got to offer some sort of value exchange. If you're not the bigger account, maybe you can offer to edit videos for them. For example, a friend of mine offered to edit 10 videos for an account in exchange for a simple duet. Like, that's a real example of someone who reached out, took the initiative, and actually grew his fan base by having another larger account duet his videos. And what he was able to bring to the table, my friend, was simply editing and taking some of the load off of the creative table for the larger account. So there are different ways that you can work out sort of a, mutual win-win situation. But I think that is where it would put a lot of focus. And I think what is often missed when it comes to creating meaningful impact is creating meaningful impact with memorability with your own profile, creating meaningful impact by making sure you're sharing what's working with others, because chances are you'll learn strategies from them that maybe you're completely missing. It's always good to have a second or third pair of eyes. And then number 3 is really making sure that you're constantly networking. And like I said, some of the monetization opportunities, like the Discord groups that I'm a part of, or the creators that I've been able to connect, even doing some traveling, like all the people that I'm meeting up with in different areas. I went to Austin, Texas recently. The people that I connected with there were people that watch my videos, that I've messaged, that I've DM'd before. And so, hey, we're all in this Discord group together, this workshop, and, clearly networking is worked so far. And I would encourage you to, keep threading and keep fueling that golden goose forward. So I think that's pretty much it. Again, I'm gonna make sure I have to do some restructuring here, but I'm gonna give you access to all the notes that I mentioned in case you want to look at and look over some of the things that we talked about. But yeah, I think we can kind of transition to a Q&A section here for the next 20 minutes or so, just to hear your thoughts, or if there's anything that I can clarify.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Joseph, for taking the time and coming to speak to all of us. That was definitely a lot of really awesome information. I know everybody here really appreciates it and definitely will take it and utilize it on their accounts, hopefully growing through it and with it. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. We do
Yeah, you bet.
have Thank you, thank you. So we do have time for questions, guys. Um, let's go ahead and have you guys pop your questions in No Mic. So it's the channel right above the workshop voice chat that we're in, Joseph. So if you want to look in there, you guys can start putting. No, we're not going to go to. Sorry, we're not going to go to questions like the voice channel. Sorry, I'm just saying you can put your questions in No Mic. So if you start asking questions in here, let's chill with the spam and the memes and everything, guys. Let's get some questions going. And then Joseph, you can kind of scroll through and just kind of see like which um, you think are, you know, you can answer like right now for the next 20 minutes or so.